Well, I'm glad that so many people could join us tonight. And Tracy, thank you so much for asking me back. Last year we had standing room only and you were kind enough to get chairs for others. And we had a good discussion about preventing waste, recycling right, and talk a little bit about SWANCC's programs. And I will be doing the same tonight with whatever is new since last time we spoke, as well as to highlight some things, some precautions that we're being asked by our haulers with regards to the COVID virus for safety for all. So there have been some changes and we'll get started. For any of you that might be newcomers, I'm going to start with a couple slides just to give you a brief background of who the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County, or SWANCC, is, as well as our mission and who belongs. I will be happy to take any and all questions at the end. So if you've just recently joined, please put your question in the chat box. Tracy will be monitoring those for me and we'll be going over those at the end. SWANCC is a unit of local government that was established back in 1988. And our mission is really focused on a narrow niche of our environment, on solid waste, and then preventing waste. So we wanted to make sure that we had a place to put garbage for a very long time, to have a long-term plan, to make it cost-effective, and also environmentally safe. What got buried today wouldn't come back to be a Superfund site. That would require a lot of money to remediate. So with that in place, these 23 communities are part of the agency. In total, that shows 23 communities, or equivalent to 230,000 households. Each community is able to contract with their own hauler or have municipal staff for garbage and recycling. But what the agency's director does is to help these communities when it comes time to contract, to make sure that provisions are in place and that the economics make sense, because that is our expertise: solid waste and recycling and safe disposal. We are a staff of 3 right now. We have our executive director, myself, the recycling and education director, and our office manager and assistant to our executive director, all of the same person. So as you can see, Arlington Heights is one of the agency's members. And part of the system of managing garbage is having our own transfer station. That transfer station is located on River Road on the cusp of Glenview and Des Plaines. And as we all know, it's important to have mechanisms and management in place for our solid waste that has potential, can no longer be used, has potential toxicity in it or germs that we want to keep contained and away from our households. However, I will tell you, at the transfer station, there are many resources that come into the building that I don't call garbage or I don't call trash. And I'm happy to see the pendulum swing of our industry of going from solid waste management services to sustainable materials management. And that is looking, it says that there's a value in some of the things that are going into the stream. And by thinking before we purchase something, thinking before we throw something away, will help diminish and reduce the amount that gets buried in a landfill. At the present time, all curbside waste and recycling programs are operating pretty much the same way as you know it. There have been just a couple changes. Our haulers have asked you to be patient right now while they're looking at their labor force and the trucks needed on the road, and as route density and routes change, that the main service is changing right now is not to pick up bulk items such as furniture and mattresses, things that are going to be outside of the garbage container. I think that's slowly going to be changing as they're they're experiencing their new normal. And each of the 23 communities will be in contact with their hauler to find out when the bulk pickup will be reinstated, because it seems like with so many people at home during the COVID-19 virus, that many of us have cleaned out our closets and our garages and our basements, and it's spring cleaning anyway. So there are extra things that need to be either thrown away or donated. And I'll talk about donation in a few slides. But excuse me, one of the things the haulers have asked, no matter who you have, I'm assuming that the majority of you are Arlington Heights residents, but maybe you're from Palatine or maybe you're from Mount Prospect. All haulers are asking that when you throw garbage away, that you seal it in the bag and tie it tight before it goes in the cart. That way, should there be any infected materials in there, they will stay in there. And it's just better safety for everybody. Right now, SWANCC special materials are electronics, especially that was supposed to be opening up in April, are events that were supposed to be starting, that some of them were in tandem with paper shredding. Everything is suspended right now as health departments and village halls and city halls are closed. This all will change once we can walk about the cabin, once our governor either relaxes some of the stay-at-home directives, and we'll all be seeing some new protocols about going into public places. So stay tuned. I will be communicating with Arlington Heights as to what that might look like for when we start to reopen our programs, especially the electronics and the big public gatherings. We will know more soon. But for right now, if you have materials, you can hang on to them, and knowing that these programs will be opening up again. And if you want any information as to time and location of where to take these materials, they're located on the agency's website at swanc.org. And I will give you that website again before the end of the presentation. Something new that has really popped up over the last year since I spoke are lithium batteries. We're seeing lithium batteries quickly replace the alkaline batteries for household electronics. There are the lithium primary, which is very similar to an alkaline battery. They are not rechargeable. They're a one-time use, but they are power charged, which is why they're becoming the new darling. They make things last longer and operate longer. But because of that, when they poop out and they no longer operate your battery operated toothbrush, they still contain a large charge. So I wanted to raise the awareness that even though the battery program is no longer being participated in by Arlington Heights staff, there are places to take these batteries when they reach their end of life. And there's a, you can go to the agency's website. I have a lot of information there. I can give Tracy a handout that she can provide for you post event on what to do with these batteries. If you'll see, this AA is very similar to this AA, and the only way that you're going to know is by looking at the label. This one says lithium and this one says alkaline. And when it's a lithium battery that you need to dispose, it's not against the law here in Illinois for residents to throw them in the garbage. So what we're seeing is there are fires in our garbage trucks, and you're not supposed to put them in your recycling bin at the curbside. So we're seeing fires in recycling carts, at material recovery facilities, and sometimes even at homes and businesses because of that extra power. So it's very prudent if you have a lithium battery that no longer operates your device to tape the terminal end. Can you see my little arrow as I'm putting it over? Tracy, do you have your audio on so you can answer me? There's right here, I have my little, whoop, I had my arrow going, there it is. To just put a piece of electric or duct tape over the terminal, And if you're not going to bother taking it for recycling, you can put it in the garbage. It's allowed here in the state of Illinois, but there are many locations. There are Home Depot, there's Lowe's, there's Best Buy. You can log on to calltorecycle.org and put in your zip code and it will give you that information. And when you get to the store, they will have you put it in a plastic baggie. Oftentimes the baggies are there for you. So that way it keeps the batteries from touching the terminal ends that sometimes can spark a fire. So it's good to know whether they're in your business, whether they're in your home, whether they're in your library. They need to be managed, and they need to be managed in a way that they're not going to cause a fire. So the mission, the whole idea of managing waste is something to keep the waste away from humans so we don't get sick. It's a health issue, but really my responsibility to educate those in our member communities is to get you to think about waste in a different way, to think about it as a resource, and to have this hierarchy of thought process before garbage even presents itself. So it's about rethinking our choices. When we go to the store, what are we going to buy? How is it going to be packaged? Do we need it? Can we borrow it? To just have some of those thought processes with yourself. And then sometimes with the single use, if you're out and about, you can take your own coffee mug, you can take your own water bottle when you're having parties, you can have, you can use the china, you can use, instead of the single use. And that is all about reduce. It's about not making the waste in the first place. And then to look at refurbishing and repairing and repurposing, using something again rather than throwing it away because we can. And then recycling really is our last option. It's recycling for the sake of achieving an environmental impact, not just for the sake of recycling. So these are 9 reasons to wean ourselves off plastic. A good place to start is by purchasing durable, reusable goods for meetings, parties, lunches, and personal use instead of the disposables. What we do now is single-use plastics and other types of litter really is a global problem that negatively impacts wildlife, our ecosystem, and our food chain. So when we use less of the single use, when we do the reusables and not litter, it really does have a wonderful impact. Some facts that I thought you might find interesting: nearly 300 million tons of plastic is produced each year, half of which is for single use, which means a coffee cup, a water bottle, a Gatorade bottle, a baggie. 500 million straws are used every day in America. A plastic baggie has an average working life of, or a plastic bag has an average working life of just 15 minutes. And more than 9 million tons of plastic ends up in our oceans each year. So unfortunately, wildlife can't always differentiate between little pieces of plastic and food. There are 4 wonderful websites where you can get more information about plastics and solutions. Plastic Pollution Coalition, and Tracy, I can give you these at post presentation to send out. For Ocean, Take 3, and the Story of Stuff are all really, really good references to learn more. So if we're reducing things and not making it in the first place, that's a 2 thumbs up. Reuse, repair, and repurpose is really a close second to that. And there are many innovative ways that we can look at reusing materials. The secondhand book just came out this year by Adam Minter. I just finished it actually while I've been at home. And it talks about our global economy and how one man's trash really is another man's treasure. And this globalization of secondhand and repairing old things for giving people the opportunity to have quality things again that maybe they can't buy is really a wonderful network. This is an example of this little flyer here of Evanston and Wilmette both last year did a couple repair clinics to invite people who had expertise on how to fix things, how to sew things, mechanics and engineers. And then residents would bring in their things that needed to be repaired. And it's an exchange of skill sets and wanting not to throw things away. I think it's very clever. We're seeing it a lot in Europe, and some of our communities are trying it out to see how it works. And then many churches, many schools, many organizations are finding ways to collect items that can't go in your recycling bin, but have niche programs. And I will talk more about that in a little bit. So reusing extends the life of something that we have rather than throwing it away. And if you have been diligent in cleaning out and you have bags or you have boxes, please wait until the donation locations open up. Do not take these things and leave them outside a closed building. That just presents more problems for those locations and for the health department. So call first once things start opening up, see what they're taking, how they're taking it, and hopefully your nice donations will find their way to others that can use them. So let's talk a little bit about recycling. Last year I talked about China's national sword and the impact that it had initially on America's recycling. It meant that anything that was coming from America to be exported to China couldn't have less than 5% contamination, which is next to impossible to get it loads that clean with the current sorting system that we have without putting a lot of money into it. There are other countries that have wanted our recycling, but they too have raised their standards. And that has been a positive thing for everybody. So it just takes more labor. Labor is money. It takes money to upgrade some of the material recovery facilities. And also to know it's about quality, not quantity. Not everything can be recycled in your curbside cart. And what I have here are some guidelines that SWANCC has on our website to talk about the few things that can. For plastics, it's about plastic bottles being empty, everything empty, clean, and loose. Nothing put in plastic bags to go into the recycling cart, including plastic bags. So we want bottles, leave the lids on. It helps keep the form of the bottle when it gets separated at the recovery facility. Bottles, tubs, jugs, and jars. I'm going to just stay on the positive stuff right now instead of the don'ts, because I have a whole slide of the don'ts in lieu of being with you with all my different visuals. So bottles, jugs, jars, and tubs. Those are some pictures of examples. Glass, all colors, bottles, jars. And then for metal, steel, and aluminum, you can do aerosols as long as they're completely empty. So that means you need to go outside or put in your sink any last bit of whatever it is, the shaving cream, for example, or hairspray, to make sure it's completely empty, because aerosol cans can explode and material recovery facilities aren't great on wanting those because of that reason. But the Steel Recycling Institute wants their steel back to have it recycled. So it's about cooperation and understanding to make sure that if you do have an aerosol can, to make sure that it's completely empty. And then for mixed paper, it's magazines, it's newspaper, it's writing paper, it's flattened cardboard boxes, and it's also cartons. It's milk cartons, juice boxes, and the aseptic packaging that you see there in the picture. So again, it's about quality, not quantity. And it's about the things you see in the picture pretty much only for curbside. So speaking of curbside, with our COVID-19 concerns, our recyclers want you to recycle normally, except if someone in the house has been infected with the virus and you're showing symptoms, then they're asking you to please bag what you would normally recycle. There's a lot to learn about this virus and how long it lingers on materials. And right now, everybody is just about being extra safe. Next year, we'll know a whole lot more, having a year behind us for research. But for now, should you have symptoms or somebody in the house have the virus, please do not recycle. Please throw everything in a garbage bag and tie the bag tight and put it in your garbage. The other thing is, please do not either litter or recycle your masks, your plastic gloves, or any tubing from medical devices. That is all garbage. It can have germs on it, so it's prudent to put it in the garbage and never to recycle, and certainly not to litter. And so once you make the conscious effort to empty and clean the materials that I quickly went through, what happens to those materials? Where do they go and what happens to them? So I have a little video to show you a material recovery facility to show you how some of these things get sorted. And I think it might make more of an impact. This picture down here where these two men, this machine has stopped, so they have to cut out all the plastic bags that have gotten caught in the sorters. So this not only dangerous, but when they have to shut down the line for some time, that they're just losing money on doing the processing. So I think you'll have a better understanding of why things are limited due to the way things are sorted.
The average American throws away 4.5 pounds of garbage each day. Our landfills are quickly filling up, raw materials are being depleted, and a huge amount of energy is being used to make products from raw materials. Our current recycling efforts in America are falling short. A basic understanding of how recycling works will make us all better recyclers. Let's go behind the scenes to better understand the recycling journey. Our journey begins at the curb on pickup day. The recyclables that you placed in your recycle cart are picked up by our driver, who then delivers it to our material recovery facility. Here, material is sorted by type. Once the truck is weighed, our driver dumps the material. The material is loaded in our drum feeder. The drum feeder distributes the material evenly onto a conveyor belt. The material then makes its way to the first sorting station. Workers sort through the materials to remove items that cannot be recycled at our facility, like plastic bags, toys, and electronics. Next, rubber stars rotate to separate cardboard from other recyclable materials. Additional screens help the flow of material by sending paper over the screen and containers below. Workers remove any remaining non-recyclable items. Paper and cardboard is then sent to our baler, where it is compacted into large bales. Now that the cardboard and paper has been removed and baled, let's sort the remaining material. Glass pieces fall through our fine screen and make their way to the glass collection area. As the containers continue through the system, the tin cans are pulled out using a magnet. The rest of the containers are sorted using one of our T-Tech machines, which looks at each container and separates it by type using bursts of air. Aluminum cans are separated by what we call an eddy current. The eddy current is a special magnet which repels the cans into their own storage container. Once sorted, Material is sent to the container baler, where separate recyclables are compacted into bales. Bales are loaded onto trucks, which transport the materials to various facilities to be transformed into new products. Together, with proper recycling, we can each continue to save landfill space, conserve energy, and protect our planet's natural resources.
So as a reminder, those materials that get separated and they get baled and they're sold to market or to manufacturers to be reprocessed, they get made into new products. Old glass jars and bottles become new glass jars and bottles, old paper to new paper, and so forth. So because we can't always go and see that manufacturing happen, and it is pretty interesting, I have a little video to show you of what happens to cartons, milk cartons, juice boxes, when you recycle those. The Carton Council is a unique organization of stakeholders who make the Tetra Pak in aseptic packaging. And they have put money into the material recovery facilities to make sure that they can sort and keep separate from the paper, from the mixed paper, from the cardboard, their cartons, to be able to turn them into the materials you just saw in the video. However, they're not accepted in a lot of recycling programs. Chicagoland is a very good area for them, and we can recycle here in the collar counties in the city of Chicago. But if you know somebody mid-state or downstate Illinois, those cartons are not allowed. So it's still not everywhere for the cartons, but at least it's here. This is a slide that's really loaded. I understand that there's a lot of pictures on here, but I thought that I could at least go quickly through some of the don'ts, because I want you to have the information you need to be good recyclers and to recycle right. And I understand that oftentimes it's confusing, but I thought I would go over just a few key things right here and reiterate: empty, clean, no food waste, no oil, no grease, and do not bag your recyclables. Keep them loose. And then some of the things that recyclers say that they see all the time as contamination are the things that I'm going to be talking about quickly. And we can talk about it more at length in a few minutes before this ends. So nothing large explosive like a tank, a propane tank. Nothing to tangle, to get involved in the machinery like lights and garden hoses and hangers. Nothing disposable. So no cutlery, no straws, no styrofoam, no cups, no plates, no takeout containers. Those are all garbage. And curbside recycling do not include shredded paper. Shredded paper is in little bits and pieces, and you saw the mechanisms and the machinery and the conveyor belts at the MRF. It simply can't be processed. It's like taking a big confetti party paper, you know, and throwing it in the air, because it gets all over the place and in bales that it shouldn't. So the best way to either recycle your shredded paper that you do at home is bring it to a SWANCC event. You can bring it in a paper bag. You can staple the paper bag and we'll just toss it into the truck and it'll be recycled with like shredded paper by the vendor that we use. Or you can pay to take it to Clearbrook up in Palatine. It's a small fee to have adults with disabilities that have been certified to shred your paper there. If you don't want to do it at home. And you're also, it can be used in the compost, the paper, shredded paper in the compost, or for kitty, if you have animals, you can find other ways to use it, but do not put shredded paper in your curbside recycling cart, please. And then of course, no batteries of any kind ever in the recycling cart. There are special drop-offs that you can take the rechargeables, and alkaline present no safety hazard and can safely be put in your trash can at home. Electronics, we have special programs for. You cannot put these in your garbage. It's against the law as of 2012, but the agency, eventually our programs will open up again. And we are going to try and reschedule the one that Arlington Heights was going to have at the racetrack at the end of April. I'm sorry that got canceled. So we're going to try and reschedule that. Please no plastic bags or film in your curbside cart. You can gather those separately and you can take those to a retail establishment, a Jewel, a Mariano's, a Target, a Walmart for recycling, but not through your curbside recycling. And then please no medications, no needles. Believe it or not, and no diapers. The haulers, the recyclers have seen everything that I have mentioned. And when a load of recycling has so much contamination, it will become garbage instead of recycling. So keep all this in mind, and thank you very much for not wish cycling something to put something in your cart that might be recyclable. Stick to the short list of the guidelines and you should be pretty good. Another part of recycling is composting. And I wanted to mention this because landscape waste pickup just started. And in Arlington Heights, you have an opportunity to have a subscription for a cart, either a 65-gallon cart or a 95-gallon cart, to where you can add to your grass and your lawn clippings and leaves, fruits and vegetables, breads, tea grounds, coffee grounds, pasta, cereal, non-liquid dairy like cheese. So those things we call it a ride-along program that will go to a composting facility. And there's just so many benefits to composting food scraps. Soil is the foundation of our health and well-being. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions that are created in a landfill called methane. It improves your soil quality. It retains moisture in the ground. It helps sequester carbon underneath the ground where it's not our enemy. And it helps just overall quality of water mitigation, especially in storms, by using food amended compost. So those are all good things. If you're not familiar with it, you can visit the village's website under services and go to this program so you can get more information about it. You can also compost in the backyard. That is the lowest carbon footprint. That way you get to use your own compost that you create. You can do it in a few different ways. You can do it through worms. I have one of these in my office. I've been doing vermicomposting for over 25 years. You can also do it outside. There are different tumblers, there's different containers to where when you compost your fruits and vegetables and your landscape waste, your compost cooks and you can use it. You can get it out of your whichever composter you have. And then there's something called bokashi. And I could spend an hour talking about each one of these, but I will just instead tell you to go to either the agency's website or the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition's website, as there are directions and instructions for each kind of these backyard at-home composting methods. One last thing I'd like to bring to your attention is to get to know SWANCC's website. It has wonderful resources. We have a newsletter that goes out. You can join up to get our e-list. You can like us on Facebook if you like to go on social media. We have something called the reuse and recycling directory that when you go on, you can click it. And on the right side, there are a number of different materials that will appear that have, when you click on it, say batteries or say paint. It shows you, it gives you a lot of options for reuse, recycling, and safe disposal, depending what that material is. So get to know the agency's website and sign up for our newsletter, like us on Facebook, and know that we are a resource for you. Tomorrow is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And I've done this calendar, gosh, since 1993, that has a tip for each day of the month, except this year it is timeless. This calendar can be used any month of the year. It can be downloaded from our agency's website, and it will have tips to take you longer than just a regular month. So, and on the back of this also has the recycling guidelines. So that can be sourced from our website. With that said, before I open it up, I just want to thank all of you for your interest in listening to my presentation tonight and for being good stewards of the environment. Right now, with this current administration, we're seeing many of our regulations relaxed. And it's really important that we have a clean environment for everybody. It's not a partisan issue. It's something that is vastly important for all of us and our families to have clean air, clean water, and healthy food. So whatever you're willing to do to fight the fight, to work locally through your community organizations to reduce your waste, to prevent it, to reuse, and to recycle and compost, I thank you very much, because each individual effort collectively will truly make a difference. And that's what we need to be doing as a nation, is pitching in to make a difference, to keep our earth pristine for our future, for now, for us to enjoy, but certainly for future generations as well. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and we can open it up to questions, Tracy.
Okay, good. I will go back. One of our earlier questions was, do we recycle caps and bottles and milk cartons?
So milk cartons, yes. Just empty, clean. And the only thing to put a cap back on would be a plastic bottle. That's the only way to recycle a plastic cap, is to put it back on the bottle when it's empty and clean. And again, if you didn't catch my comment, it actually helps hold the integrity of the bottle from being crushed, because it's being sorted by lasers and optical sorters. And if it gets completely flattened, it will go to, excuse me, the fiber side of life. And not the carton side, you know, not the bottle side of life. So by leaving those caps on, it really helps. As far as like a beer bottle, those caps are very small. Anything from a metal, from a glass jar, like a jar of pickles, they want the lids to be at least 3 inches in diameter.
What about a container, a plastic container, like a sour cream tub or margarine? That was another question.
So that would be an example of a tub that can be recycled.
Yeah. Okay, how about, how do we dispose of latex paint?
So latex paint is water-based paint. What you can do, there's a little video on SWANCC's website on how to dry out paint. If you'd like to go watch it, it's simple by putting kitty litter in a gallon of paint. It will solidify quickly, just within really a couple hours, and then you can put it in your garbage. You put it in your garbage without the lid, so your hauler knows that it's not runny. We don't want to make a mess in the neighborhood. There are other paint recyclers. There are Ace Hardware stores that will take back latex paint for a small fee. If you go on the agency's website under paint, E-Paint Recycling, that has a warehouse there in Arlington Heights, actually on Oakton, is working with some of the Ace Hardware stores. I think they've got 80 Ace Hardware stores now that are accepting paint from residents, and then they use E-Paint Recycling for the recycling of it.
Okay, sorry, Mary, we just need a little clarification. So for things like the tubs, like a sour cream or margarine tub, the cap, the lid, the plastic lid should stay on?
No,
No,
just the bottles.
just the bottle. So a sour cream tub, the lid would not stay on. Just the bottle, the bottom part of the tub would be recycled.
So just for beverage bottles, the caps stay on. Lids for other plastic things, no, they're garbage.
Okay. Is
That way the recycler can see that they're clean.
Okay. Okay, and then also and you said for the pickle jars, for a glass pickle jar, the lid, as long as it's over, what was the diameter?
3 inches in diameter.
Okay, so if the lid is over 3 inches in diameter, then you screw it back on and put it
You
in the
can either leave it on the glass jar or you can put it separately. It doesn't matter.
because what you're trying to do is maintain the structural integrity of the item.
So for glass breaks and the lid will fall off eventually. So it doesn't matter if you have it on or off for glass.
Okay, perfect. Another question, and it says, what to do with all of the plastic bags? Like, so now with, especially during these COVID times, like Jewel and Mariana's, they won't let you use your your reusable bags. Can those be recycled, or those have to go in the trash?
So I went shopping last night and I took my reusable bags. They just will not, staff will not put food in your reusable bags. So I had to hold it, and I had to then, as it came, I went to Trader Joe's and I had my sturdy reusable bag that I wiped down all the time, and I loaded the bags myself.
Okay.
So you can still use your reusable bags. You just have to load your bags yourself, and they can't go on the conveyor belt. You have to hold them.
Okay.
You kind of have to hold it in the air while you, or you can leave them in your cart while you fill them up, because they can get heavy. Plastic bags right now, check ahead. You can save them, because Trex Recycling, who buys those plastic bags for plastic lumber, still wants that stream. That is their feedstock for their plastic lumber. And stores might, if they're, because of the quarantine period, stopping collecting the plastic bags, they'll reinstate it eventually, so hang on to them. Or if you're collecting so many of them, because you're not using your reusable bags, you can put them in the garbage. But I think we'll get back to somewhat of a pattern again of those being able to go back to Target and Walmart and Mariano's and Jewel.
But they do not go in our curbside recycling.
They do not go in your curbside program, yes.
Okay, another question we had is, why is a number 1 accepted, but a number 6 is not accepted by Groot? They seem similar. What is the difference?
So the number codes on plastic recycling, the 1 through 7s that we've been seeing in little chasing arrows, really have never been meant for the consumer. It is a industry marking for what that plastic is made from, the kind of DNA or the polymer, the resin that is made, because that way, when it goes to the manufacturer to reprocess it, they understand what resin it is, and each plastic melts at a different temperature. Some have a higher market value than others. So it's really an industry thing, and we're trying to get, the recyclers want us to get you not to look at the numbers. It's kind of hard because they don't want the number 6, so you almost have to look at it. So styrofoam will come into, the polystyrene, which is the number 6, will come in either a clear plastic or it will come in a white expanded, like coffee cups or takeout containers. So that plastic is high in contamination. It's very lightweight. It's an expensive material to reprocess. so they choose not to recycle it. There are some special drop-offs for it. DART out in Aurora is one of the manufacturers that has a drop-off for styrene. Winnetka is another community that will take styrofoam from residents. They have on their website, not now, but once we can visit Winnetka again, all the different kinds of styrofoam that they do accept, the big coolers for steaks and more. So I would check Winnetka's website probably midsummer. They'll get their programs back up and running. And Apt Electronics in Glenview has a densifier that squeezes the air out of the styrene and gives it a weight. And they work with a manufacturer directly for the styrene that they generate in the store, one of the largest electronics stores, but also they take it from residents. So it's a niche material, can't go in the curbside program, but there are some options if you find yourself with it.
Okay. We had another question, and I'll kind of paraphrase it, but essentially, is there a place that you can take your clean recyclables to so that you know for sure they're getting recycled? Like, this individual is concerned because they know that their neighbors are putting stuff in the recycling. I mean, I see that too in my neighborhood, people putting stuff in the recycling that is not fully clean, or maybe it's in a bag or whatever. And this individual is worried that their recyclables will not be getting recycled because they're being contaminated by the materials that are improperly put in.
No, there aren't any drop-offs anymore. Our curbside programs are so, comprehensive through, you have GRT in Arlington Heights. There is one drop-off in Chicago. I don't even know that it's open right now, but to live in Arlington Heights and drive into Chicago, I don't know that you'd want to do that. If you would, we do have that drop-off North Park listed on our website under recycling. In the recycling directory, you can get their address and information. But really the only way to recycle these items is through your contracted recycler.
Okay, we have a question about what do you do, or what about the tape that is on flattened boxes? Is that recyclable?
It's best to remove tape if you can, especially the excessive tape. During reprocessing of these boxes, there's hot water and there's mixing, and that tape will jar loose. But sometimes there's big plastic envelope, there's envelopes on boxes, and there's an overabundance of tape. I would say that is a contaminant. So to take that off if you can and throw it away before you flatten the box for recycling.
Okay, I have two different questions that are kind of in the same category. So, and one of them I think you've kind of answered, but can we recycle any type of plastic? And then maybe to clarify, which clear plastics are not recyclable?
So no, we can't recycle any kind of plastic. It goes back to beverage bottles, jugs, which would be milk jugs, laundry detergent bottles, tubs that we talked about, a cottage cheese, a yogurt, or jars, something that may have had mayonnaise or sauce or peanut butter, as long as it's clean, extremely clean. How clean does it have to be? No food residue at all. So those are the only plastics that can be recycled curbside. And again, there are some niche programs for other plastics through TerraCycle and Trex Lumber with the plastic bags and film program.
Okay, we had a question to see if you knew. Apparently there was a competition, a plastic competition in Arlington Heights grade schools. And this individual is interested if you know if the schools are still collecting plastics during this quarantine time, or I mean, maybe they're supposed to be collecting them at home. I'm not really sure what the program was.
That everything just kind of went
Yeah.
And everything that any of us were trying to do, especially in preparation of then waiting for Earth Day tomorrow to celebrate all these successes. And my guess is that, gosh, school hasn't been in since almost March. And if it was the trucks program that they were participating in for a park bench, I can't answer that. A school district representative would have to provide input. Since nobody's at school, nobody's bringing them to the schools. And with some of the stores right now holding off on accepting bags, my guess is it's kind of fallen flat, and it's not going to end the way that they wanted it to end, because they started on America Recycles Day, which is November 15th, and then they finish it on Earth Day, which is tomorrow. Okay. So if they've calculated what they, I think trucks probably will look back at the data from November through school closing, and then award benches that way, would be my guess. Okay. If that's the program that they were participating in.
Okay. I'm going to jump to one of these questions just because it looks like there's a clarification that we need. If you can clarify, it says, if other people are putting their recycling in plastic bags, does that mean the entire batch across neighbors gets contaminated, or will my clean and loose items still make it to the facility and be recycled? Or do I just give up and not recycle anymore? No,
don't do that. It's still a very viable industry, even though markets are in the toilet right now. The prices are lower than what we see. There is still a need. There's still a directive for businesses to buy recycled content. And so manufacturers need this recycling. And they need it quality. So if you are one of those good neighbors that everything is empty, loose, and to the guidelines, those materials will be put inside the truck. However, if Groot pulls up and sees a recycling cart that has all bagged recycling, I will tell you that they're going to throw it in the garbage. And I wish they were better at reaching out to it. It's something that I'm trying to work with our municipal, Tracy's husband, and others about, to really reaching out. They need to be providing messages right now. They look to SWANCC sometimes to get the education out, and really we're 3 people. And forums like this is wonderful that I get to talk to you and I get to share what you need to know, but they need to have a bigger responsibility, in my estimation, in letting, through village newsletter and through flyers and through even their own forums or seminars. And they fall short, in my opinion. So I'd like to see more opportunities that they give to provide you with that information.
And then I think this is kind of related to that, but someone asked, what about biodegradable garbage bags? Can they be put into the recycling containers?
No, that's a big contaminant for recycling. They don't want anything, the biodegradable anything in recycling carts. Those typically are touted as compostable, but I just sat in a big conversation with one of our largest composters here in Chicago land area. They don't want the compostables because that breaks down different than food. Food automatically starts breaking down when you mix it with landscape waste. And by the time it gets in your cart to the facility, most of it's already started its degradation process, whereas the biodegradable bags degrade at a slower rate than the food does. And so certainly don't put them in your recycling cart. If they go to the landfill, they'll degrade faster because, as we know, plastic doesn't degrade as it just kind of sits around forever. So if you can find a composter that'll take it, that's good. Groot doesn't want it in their composting because where they take their composting, that facility doesn't want the biodegradables.
Okay. Someone else asked, can you recycle clean straws?
No, garbage. You can get reusable straws, all different kinds of materials, even paper. So when you're throwing paper away, at least, or composting paper, if you're doing it in your yard, you can put your paper straw, but not in your carts or garbage.
Okay, what about plastic clamshells, like that you get fruit in and stuff and vegetables?
So Groot has said yes to those. There are a couple communities that are a couple recyclers that don't want them. So because Groot has said yes to the clamshells for berries, particularly berries, just make sure that if it has a little diaper in it, that little pad, that's pulled out, that it's completely clean and empty, and then just you can close it.
Okay.
So that's a gray area question. That's why it's not on the guidelines, because it can't be recycled everywhere, and it really is up to individual haulers or recyclers whether they'll take it or not.
Someone else asked, what about the Amazon plastic envelopes, the blue and white ones?
No, those are garbage.
Garbage. And can you crush soft plastic bottles and put them in your recycling, I'm guessing, to make space? Or should they remain in the...
Where the recyclers are asking you not to crush your plastic bottles because it holds, again, the integrity of the bottle. If it gets crushed, it'll be seen as a fiber as it goes down the conveyor belt, and then put with paper, and then it'll be thrown away. So they don't put it back on the other side. So it's best to leave your plastic bottles as they are and the lid back on so it holds that shape.
Okay. I see that there is one more question for clarification, back to the question we had before, but this guest says, so if it's a combined bin with neighbors, then my clean stuff isn't going to make it into the recycling either. So
they're sharing a cart?
It says my combined bin with neighbors.
So it sounds to me like they're sharing.
Oh, yes, at a condo.
At a condo, is that so what you need to do is tell them their recycling is not being accepted and it's compromising the whole entire load. And if you can share what you learned tonight and guide them to SWANCC's website, hopefully that will make a difference. And if enough of you speak up, that peer pressure mentality, hopefully, you're showing them how you're doing it right, that will have an impact on their willingness to comply.
Okay, one of our guests, Preeti, says, I thought the Amazon blue and white plastic flat bags can be put with other plastic bags in Jewel, Mariano, etc., so they don't need to go into the garbage. Do you know, is that the case?
It can't go in the recycling cart, curbside. That was my no. So, that program is always changing. I think the best thing to do is for me to give Tracy the website, either plasticbagandrecyclingfilm.com or the Trex lumber one itself has what you can add. And then it's up to individual stores sometimes to make that call, depending who they're working with for their end market. Not all of them work with Trex. So it's a kind of a store or a regional kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it may be that you can. That is something new that I'm not aware of. I know that the little soft bubble pillows that come in packaging is part now of the film, but what I have heard from both companies is it can't be a crunchy plastic, that it's got to be a very no sound when you squeeze it. So those Amazon folders, I know that they want them to be, Amazon has touted them as recyclable, but just because a company says that their product is recyclable doesn't mean it can be recycled either in your curbside program or other special programs. And that's what's causing a lot of confusion. The newest are the little Keurig cups. They're coming out with, we're recyclable. Not a single MRF in the United States wants them right now. They're small, they'll clog things, not everybody's going to get them really clean. So it's a misnomer, and it's an injustice for all of us trying to do, stay on top of the recycling right when they're saying, oh, it can be recycled, and it's only in theory. So it's always best to check locally with your group hauler or with SWANCC to verify it.
Okay, and there are, I think there's a couple more questions, but I know I see some people are starting to leave the room. So I just want to say one thing, that after this presentation, I will send everybody who registered for this program a survey, and along with that, in that email, I will put any resources that Mary sends to me so that you guys can access those. So you should get an email tomorrow. It'll have a survey that you can take. We'd appreciate it if you did. Otherwise, you can look through there too, and there'll be some links to different resources and materials that Mary had mentioned during the course of this presentation. So,
and then also, if anybody has questions, my email address is Mary, M-A-R-Y, @SWANCC, SWANCC.org, and Tracy will have that information. You're welcome to email me anytime.
okay, there was a question. It's just mary@swanc.org, huh? Okay, and then there was a question about Roundup. The weed killer, maybe? Is that what they're talking about? What the Roundup?
What would they?
Maybe if that container was recyclable, I'm not sure.
If it's empty?
Yeah.
Or if you have still product in it, it can go to one of the 4 household hazardous waste chemical facilities. We have one in Naperville, one in Rockford, one in Gurnee, and one in the city of Chicago. All 4 sites, the information, the address, and the hours of operation are on SWANCC's website. Right now, all 4 sites are closed under the current COVID-19 pandemic stay at home, but everything will be opening up eventually, and by summer things should be up and running as per usual. So if you have Roundup, I would say don't use it, get rid of it. Look at composting and topsoil and other natural ways to manicure and groom your lawn, because it's under fire right now. As to it's carcinogenic, there's a lot of research that is being denied by this administration, and I personally wouldn't use it. So if you have it, get rid of it and look for a natural lawn care product.
Okay, I think that's it in terms of questions, unless anybody has anything else they want to submit. Otherwise, I think that's it. Check your email tomorrow and you'll have the survey and the links to resources. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you, Mary. You guys you do such a great job. And thank you so much for attending. I'm always so pleased when we host these programs and we have such big turnouts. It just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy that so many people
too, so thank you all, and thank you, Tracy, for having me back.
Absolutely. We'll see you again, hopefully next time in person.
Yeah.
And everybody else, stay well. If there's anything you need, check our website, ahml.info. We have all sorts of virtual programming going on. So hopefully, I'm assuming you've been there if you registered for this, but there's all sorts of stuff through April and into May so far. And we look forward to seeing you guys. This has been great for us, and we hope that you got out of this what you wanted. So have a good night and stay well. And we will see you at our next program.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Mary.